So you just listed your home, you received the MLS listing, and you realize your underwear has made it into the real estate photography. I'm Tom Taranto, and welcome to the Tom Taranto Show. Today we have a special guest, Justin Torpy. He's a commercial photographer, and he's going to talk about how we can make sure that never happens.
Never. That should never happen.
You know, when people are searching for a house and they're basically pulling out their phone, they're flipping through, it's going to be the picture. I mean, obviously they're looking at the price and maybe square footage, but the picture of the one that they like, that's what's going to get them to click, and then they're going to flip through the rest of the pictures to see whether they want to see the house. So, I mean, it is the difference of that impression is going to be whether or not they pursue getting into it. And the interesting thing, these photos on the cell phone, it's only a couple inches. So it has to be something that really stands out from the competition. And I know that that is a big difference. About what percentage of real estate agents and people trying to sell on their own do you think are still using their own personal camera or a cell phone to market their real estate?
You know, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, I'd say 25% of real estate agents were using professional photographers. And now I'd still say that a majority of them are still doing it by themselves, but the amount that's been using professional photography is going up. And to tell you the truth, in Brevard County especially, I can link it to one major real estate firm that came into town a while ago. And this firm requires professional photography for every shoot it does.
Interesting.
So what happened is they came in and they raised the bar a little bit.
Yeah.
And they created this whole industry now of professional photography in Brevard County, where traditionally it was more isolated towards like the Orlando area, Miami, West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, the big budget areas. Yeah. And that's where a lot of the misconceptions about real estate photography start.
Yeah.
There's, I don't know where it started, but the misconception is that unless your house is valued over about $250,000 to $300,000, it's not worth it to pay a photographer.
Right.
It's just absolutely not true. I've shot them from $50,000, $60,000 up to obviously millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it always makes the house stand out compared to the competition.
And I mean, still, and that's typically an agent's expense. Mm-hmm. So it's that agent choosing not to pay a few $100s to get photographs of a $250,000 house or less. But at the end of the day, it has to do with their own image, their own branding, and it's still a decent commission to sell that $250,000 house too, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of my agents tell me about how they structure their deals, and a lot of them do it the same way. It's not a secret, but a lot of the agents that I work with say that they'll put something into their listing agreement. Say your listing agreement is 6 months, or say 3 months if you're really confident about your abilities, and they'll put a clause in their listing agreement that says the agent will pay for the photographer, but if you cancel the listing agreement early or it expires, the seller reimburses the agent.
Okay.
So when you structure it that way, you're paying the money up front, but you're really not gambling anything because if they cancel it early or you don't sell it, I mean, that's always a possibility, but the real estate market's strong around here, so I wouldn't worry about not selling it. Yeah. You'll be reimbursed for the photos. And as long as everybody's clear on that from the beginning, they've had good results with that, and people understand.
If you were to pull up, let's say my listings, and these are all my listings, whether it's actives, pendings, or solds, and then an agent who's doing maybe their high-end properties are professionally done, and then you got a whole bunch of cell phone photos. I mean, the general impression is going to be more professional to see across the board that it's clearly professional photography and it's something that looks good. What are the differences between a professional, shoot and the cell phone type of a shoot? What would you say if you look at it? How can I see the difference?
So there's no one difference. It's a culmination of a bunch of different things that come together to do real estate photography. A lot of times I'll have agents that came to me after working with other people, and some of them come to me and say, "Hey, my cousin does photography. He does wedding photography, or he does headshots or something like that." And I used him a couple times, but it never worked out well. And that's kind of, it either turned them off to real estate photography or it made them realize that there's something missing. Yeah. And what's missing is that real estate photography is unlike any other genre of photography. It's not easy on the equipment, and it's not easy on the shooter, the photographer itself. You have to have decent equipment that can handle things, because interior real estate shots are some of the most complicated shoots you will do in photography. Yeah. You got windows, bright windows, right next to dark rooms. It's a dynamic range nightmare, which I won't go too far.
Small rooms that you can't get any width to.
You got to try to make them look as big as possible. And you just can't cut it with consumer equipment. A lot of photography, you can kind of fake it a little bit because it's more about the angle and how you do it. you can't fake real estate photography with a cell phone camera or
Right.
even a point and shoot that you're going to buy from Best Buy or anything. It just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, and I know that there's a lot of advances. I was telling you a story about a house that I sold where we got it sold last year, and it was such a beautiful house. There were so many angles and so many parts of it that came out beautifully. And I looked back to the listing from a couple of years before, and the agent had 5 photographs, low resolution. And back then, a few years back, our MLS only allowed 12 photos. Which, it made sense to me that, of course, you have all 12 because that's still limited as to what you can show. This agent had 5, and they were really poor photos, and it was like a $1.2 million house. And it just blew me away. This was a successful, well-known agent in the area, still successful. Couldn't grasp why wouldn't you have had at least 12 really nice photos, and of course, we had probably 100 photos on the listing that we had. And what do you think the reason is? Is it she didn't want to pay someone to do it, or she didn't think it was valuable?
It was probably a combination of things. I'd say the major problem was you could do that 5-6 years ago in this county. There was not a lot of professional photographers doing real estate photography, so it was traditionally reserved for the high-end listings. So if you had a $200,000, $300,000 listing, which is the majority of listings in Brevard County, the average listing, not a lot of people were paying to have that shot. Right. So you were just like everybody else. So it was a safety in numbers thing. That's not the case anymore. And then the other thing is just the psychology. It's an expense up front. You know, it's real money they have to pay up front. And some people, I guess, would feel that they're not going to get their money back. Or they don't really understand the value of marketing and photography. I used to say one of my first emails that went out to everybody around here, my marketing emails went out, had the tagline that McDonald's spends $1 million to photograph $4 hamburgers. Yeah. When you let that concept sink in, it's a $4 hamburger. Why? Because an image is everything. Oh, yeah. And getting it done right isn't the cheapest way to do things, but it works. If
it's
it
the
didn't,
marketing and the packaging. Just like I see a lot of times when you go to the store, you buy something, and you realize the actual product is something about this big inside this nice packaging, and it almost feels like they spent a lot of money on the packaging, but it affected my perception of what this is worth. Correct. And yet, if you were just selling the little item, people would probably not be willing to pay for it.
Correct, and it's a perceived value. People look at high-end photos that are done properly, and automatically in their head, they're already thinking this is a special property. Right. And if you look around you, some of the most successful or some of the biggest websites around are based off photos. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. YouTube's about thumbnails now. If you don't have a good thumbnail on YouTube, people are going to pass over you. That's all there is to it. So it's just images have become for 2019, when everybody, you're getting so much from every direction, you have just a second from each thing, you got to get something that just grabs them.
Yeah, so I mean, 5, 6, 10 years ago, you didn't have this level of social media, Instagram, Facebook, the thumbnails on YouTube, and your own landing pages as a real estate agent trying to capture people, the picture on that. Let's talk a little bit about drone photography. That's something that didn't really, I remember some years ago, we would pay a pilot to fly over the house. Yes. And this is a funny story. My brother paid a pilot to take a picture of a house on the river, and the pilot flew up from the airport, flew by, took a picture from the air, delivered it, and it was the wrong house. And my brother's like, "That's not even the house I told you to." So the pilot actually had to make an additional flight, go up, and he took a picture of the right house. Today, for $1,000 or whatever, we can get a drone and go up and take all sorts of angles of the house, which of course creates a totally different perspective than you can get from the ground level. And I know that you do drone shots as well. Has that been impactful to the impressions?
Absolutely. When I first started out in real estate photography, I wasn't a fan of drone shots because photographically speaking, when you shoot something really high, you make it look smaller, less impressive. It's just it's not a flattering view for a lot of things. But so I fought it for the first couple months I did this. I'm like, no, I don't need a drone. As soon as I got that drone, the whole game changed. It is an essential thing. People expect to see an aerial shot now. That's just all there is to it. It's not that they think they should see one. They expect to see one, especially if it's in an area that is unique. If there's something unique about the surrounding area, a river
The backdrop.
backdrop,
Yeah.
something nice. They want to see that photo.
Yeah.
I wish it was $1,000 to a drone photo, but so far I haven't been able to get that for that. But problem with drones now is ever since 2 years ago, now if you want to do this commercially, if you want to fly a drone commercially, you now have to get certified by the FAA.
Yeah.
And if you're listing a house and you're the agent and you want to go take pictures with a drone of that house, you're technically doing that for commercial gain. That's commercial use. You would have to go get an FAA license, or it's a certification, or else you run the risk of being fined if the FAA does decide to catch on.
So technically, a realtor who's doing his own drone photography without that, just with his own personal drone, is breaking the law.
As far as I understand.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of.
Yeah, I'm not here to give legal advice, but as far as I understand it, yes, if it's commercial purposes, that's when that would be considered that they would be violating the law.
Something has come out that allows you to do a 3D virtual tour, which is, it's almost like a video game where they can click on a link and walk through the entire house. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this new technology?
Yeah, there are these virtual tour cameras, and virtual tours are nothing new. They've been around for a while, but lately companies have started to integrate the hardware and the software into one system, and that's what we do too. It's called Matterport. They make the best cameras out there, in my opinion. And what you do is we go around, we shoot all these houses, and you just move this camera from location to location in the house, and it does a full spin, taking pictures the whole time. Behind the scenes, the software, once that's all uploaded, stitches all of it together and creates one model of the house. And when you first enter the model, it's actually a bird's eye view. It almost looks like you're looking at a dollhouse.
Yeah.
And then you can zoom in. You can zoom around the exterior of the dollhouse all you want, and then you can zoom into each individual room and just walk through it like a normal virtual tour.
Yeah.
Some of the virtual tours are really just kind of a film strip, and you click on each image and it brings you to that color, and you can do a one spin, but that's it. This, you can literally walk through the path of the camera and see everything.
Yeah, and that's a big difference. I remember years ago, you had basically just the 360. So you would go, you had a room and you could spin around and do a spin. Whereas this is just like a high resolution video game. You can move, you can look at the ceiling, you can look at the floor, you can zoom in. And it really, and I always tell people, it's almost like the only thing you can't do is smell it. It is, you're literally can look out the window, you can, and what do you think the advantages are to marketing a property using that?
So we live in Florida. Okay, Florida, I think I just read an article the other day that more and more Northerners are moving down to Florida than any other state in the country, especially retirees, or not so much just retirees anymore. The old stigma used to be you move down to Florida to retire. It's not just them anymore. Everybody's buying houses in Florida. So when you're, 700 miles away, you can't just, put every house on your list to come down and see when you come down to visit your realtor and take a weekend and look at houses.
Right.
You have to kind of really cull through all of the available properties and just pick your favorites. And I cannot tell you how many times real estate agents have said, look, these were northern clients.
Yeah.
They saw the house on the virtual tour and put it at the top of their list. I've had agents that say they saw the virtual tour and the photos and they put in an offer before they even came down.
Yeah.
Because it gives them that
almost
level
like
of transparency. It's almost like a showing. It's a virtual showing is what I would consider, not just a virtual tour.
Yeah.
So it's invaluable nowadays.
Right, and I almost laugh now the word virtual tour because I see someone says a virtual tour and I get the full Matterport. I'm walking through the property. Another listing says virtual tour and it's pictures going like this. I'm like, this is the same pictures and they're just dancing. And that's not a virtual tour. But
it's a virtual showing. That's a better term for it.
Yeah, and I've had cases where one of the, like say the wife is physically here looking at houses, the husband's out of state, he can't be here. And we can just text him the link and he can actually get a pretty good idea of the floor plan, the layout, and you can even get dimensions of the rooms as well, the size and the shape of the rooms. And that helped out a lot because just the photos wouldn't have given him an idea of the flow of the house, not clearly. Whereas this gave him a really good idea of what this house looked like on the inside at least.
Correct. And that's the benefit. It really just gives you a comprehensive view of the property. Yeah. So when the client gets there to look at the house after, they're really just confirming everything. They've already seen what they want to see for the most part.
It's powerful, yeah. And I've had cases where I've had the 3D virtual tour and someone asks me a question about the house, like, was that a gas stove or was that a gas water heater? I'm like, 1 second. Something and I can actually go into the house, look at the water heater virtually on my cell phone. Oh yeah, that was a gas water heater or whatever it was. And it's amazing. You have full access to, I had someone where they were originally from Uzbekistan and had a full 3D tour of their house and was able to send the link to their relatives. Their relatives could walk through the house and see as it was being put up for marketing.
Yep.
Other cases, I've seen someone do a remodel and they did one before and after. So you could walk through the house, see what it looked like before, and then you could see exactly what the house looked like afterwards.
Yeah, I've had architectural firms and building companies that call me to do virtual tours of under construction projects. So like say they have partners out of state or something that want to see the progress of the building. So you'll go in on a routine basis every month or so and just do another scan, and they can see the updates as they go along. It's a really cool technology. It's something that wasn't really this widely available and this precise and professional even 5 years ago.
Yeah. It is amazing what technology is doing for us nowadays. I've experienced the value of using professional photography and the drone photography 3D virtual tour just on a listing appointment. When I go and talk with a seller, I can show this is previous houses that I've listed and sold, and then they can see how cool it is to do the walkthrough on the virtual tour. They can see the value of the angle of the drone, and they see great photos. Really, I mean, if an agent was worried about the expense, the fact that I might get an additional listing from having done all of this and also the general image or impression you give to the market makes it well worth it.
Yeah, you know, in my experience, and like I said, I've spoken with a lot of realtors doing this in 5 years, and it's really about marketing yourself and winning your listings, okay? These agents, I cannot tell you how many times they've called and said, hey, listen, you know, we went to the listing appointment, we won the listing appointment because we showed them photos that they liked or the virtual tour, which they thought were really cool. It's really about marketing yourself as well as a realtor, because there are over 3,500 realtors in Brevard County.
Yeah.
You know, do you want to be the guy who's known as doing, well, some professional photos and some depending on, you know, and then you decide how do you choose which client gets in, or do you want to be the guy every time they see a listing next to your name, it looks professionally done.
Yeah.
That equates into you being a professional as well. It's just a whole cycle that people latch onto, whether they realize it or not. The more they see it, the more it imprints on them.
Yeah, connects.
You know, this agent always does this. It looks good. It's done professionally on time, and then you know, it's really marketing yourself as well.
Yeah, I agree. And through the years, I've seen some crazy MLS photos. In fact, there's a website. I don't remember the exact URL, but I think it's like mlsphotos.com. And they've got the craziest things you would not believe that an agent actually posted to advertise a property. Just recently, in Brevard County, I saw there was 8 photos. It was bank-owned listing, which I guess was the excuse for this. There was a thumb in 5 out of 8 of the photos. A big thumb from taking it with a cell phone, and it was like, I can understand you accidentally take your thumb in the pictures, but he actually posted all of those as the marketing, and I really kind of think, what would the owner think if they looked at that's your marketing? I've seen on those, very often you see the photographer in the mirror or the dog, and then I've seen cases where there's a bra hanging over a chair or something, or some clutter or some child, and things that you wonder, like, you took that and you posted it to market this property.
The most common one I see is the realtor in the mirror of something. You know, there's always somebody that mirror shot where they're taking their cell phone camera. You see the flash in their face, and they're looking at the screen. It was kind of awkward. And it's, you know, professional photos, there should never be anybody in the mirror for sure.
That sounds right.
Because that's distracting. You're trying to get people into this world. You're trying to let them kind of immerse themselves into that house.
Yeah.
And that's it.
No doubt.
And you know, on that point though, prepping them for a photo shoot is kind of important too.
Oh yeah.
You know, if I show up and there's stuff all over the place, it's a real problem. I tell people, especially when it comes to stuff on the countertops, a camera only has one eye, unlike us, so it doesn't do 3D very well. It can't tell depth that well.
Right.
So basically, take what you have on your countertops that looks okay to you, reduce it by about 30 to 40%, because that's what's going to look uncluttered for your camera lens.
Yeah. What's your thoughts about a professional stager?
I work with a few of them. I like their work.
Yeah.
It's very valuable. You know, if you work with a good stager, they can help really define what a space is supposed to look like, and it's all about. Like I said, it's all about marketing. The more it looks good. The good thing I like about working with professional stagers, and a lot of them understand this now, is that you have to stage it so it's good flow for somebody walking around, but you also have to stage it that looks good for a camera.
Yeah.
You know, backs of couches don't look flattering, backs of chairs, stuff like that. So when we try to show an open room where everything's kind of looking towards you, so they understand that. So if they know they're going to get some professional photos done, they're going to stage it in a way that works well for both worlds, for actual walkthroughs and for photography as well.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I've had some really good experience with staging a
Mm-hmm.
property and been amazed at how the photos come out, and then also seen, boom, the property goes under contract and sells. So definitely, that's a great thing. Well, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you, Justin?
Oh, any way they can. I've got a Facebook page, Justin Torpy Photography, our website. All of our booking is done online. All of our pricing is done there, so it's justintorpyphotography.com.
Torpy.
Torpy, yep, it's kind of a mouthful. Phone numbers listed there. You can send a carrier pigeon. I don't care. However you want to get a hold of me.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate it. It was great talking with you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.